Hello and welcome back. Today we look at family murders. The crimes where the victims are those closest to the criminal, or in some of these cases the partner's family is targeted as a way of revenge, much like the first case we look at. Louise Hunt had broken up with Carl Clifford on the 26th of June 2024 because of his behaviour. It appeared to Louise that Clifford had accepted that their relationship had ended, but this wasn't the case. Over the next few days, Clifford purchased a crossbow, bolts, a bladed weapon, an air pistol, petrol, duct tape and rope. He then parked on a street near to the Hunt's family home. By 1:40 on the 9th of July 2024, he left the car to check what vehicles were in the driveways of his ex-girlfriend Louise's home. He then got back into the car and went on his phone to have a look at live horse racing events. Louise's father was a BBC Radio 5 Live and Sky Sports racing commentator called John Hunt. He knew that if there were races on, her father wouldn't be at the house. Clifford then went towards the family house with his bladed weapon concealed in a rucksack at 2:30 and rang the doorbell. At the door he was met by Louise's mother, Carol. He told Carol that he was returning some of Louise's belongings. When Carol let him in, he attacked her, taking her life. The discussion on the doorstep was captured by the Ring doorbell camera, which also captured sounds from the house throughout the day. Louise was at her family home but was not in the main house. She ran a dog grooming business from a little outhouse in the garden, and that's what she was doing. He waited for Carol to pass away and then left. He then returned to the property at 3:10. He retrieved his crossbow, which he took to the house concealed under a blanket. Louise was working in the outbuilding. Customers were coming and going throughout the afternoon through the side gate. Clifford waited for Louise to enter the main home. She did at 4:10, and shortly afterwards she was heard to scream. Clifford then attacked Louise and tied her arms and her ankles and gagged her for at least 2 hours. He then AR'd her. At 5:30, Clifford went to the outbuilding where Louise would work doing her grooming to take Louise's phone. He used it to ask John, Louise's father, when he would return home, and then searched online if unplugging a smoke detector, fully disconnecting it, would work. He was planning to burn down the house. He left the property to the back garden and returned at 6:20. He shut the blinds, used his crossbow and took Louise's life. Hannah, Louise's sister, entered the home at 7:10. She called out to ask why her mother Carol had not answered the phone before she went upstairs. Afterwards, Hannah saw Clifford and began shouting at him. Clifford tried to calm her down before Hannah began crying and screaming. Hannah then messaged her boyfriend Alex Klein, asking him to call the police and telling him that Clifford was tying her up before her phone was set to silent. He then took the crossbow and took Hannah's life. Clifford then left the house with the crossbow again concealed under a blanket. Armed police were sent to the house just before 7 p.m. with ambulance staff in attendance. Hannah was still alive when the first response arrived, but she passed away at the scene. The police appealed for the public's help locating Clifford, warning that he was considered armed and dangerous and to call 999 rather than approach him. After leaving the Hunt's home, Clifford began driving towards his own house. He stopped at a lay-by before parking up at Cook's Hole Road at 7:32 and going into nearby Lavender Hill Cemetery. He spent the night there, at some point creating a noose where he wanted to take his own life. After 22 hours, the police found Clifford injured in a cemetery near to his home at 6 p.m. on the 10th of July 2024. He had tried to harm himself with his crossbow when he saw the armed police and a police dog approaching. Police recovered the weapon and Clifford was initially treated for his injuries at the Royal London Hospital. Carol, Louise and Hannah all lost their lives. The women are survived by John Hunt, Carol's husband, and Amy, Carol and John's other daughter. Clifford had to undergo surgery for the wounds that he did to himself. He had police guard at the hospital but was unfit to be arrested due to his injuries. He paralysed himself from the waist down after shooting himself with his crossbow. Clifford's brother is also a convicted murderer. He was sentenced at the Old Bailey in 2018 and was still in prison. Police searched the property relating to Bradley, his brother, as well as Clifford's home. On the 17th of September 2024, he was charged with the murders of the 3 women. He appeared remotely at Westminster Magistrates Court. He was also charged with the false imprisonment of Louise Hunt and with 2 counts of possessing an offensive weapon. On the 19th of December 2024, Clifford appeared remotely at Cambridge Crown Court, where he pleaded not guilty to the 3 counts of murder as well as the other charges. He was also then charged with 1 count of R. His defence argued that the forensic evidence of contact can be explained by the couple having consensual relationships on the 23rd of June 2024. The prosecution said this theory was untenable. Clifford was found guilty of the R and murder on the 11th of March. He was sentenced to life imprisonment without parole. It's believed he received a whole life tariff, although this hasn't been officially reported by the courts. He remains in prison. Now we look at the Fuller family. The Fuller family consisted of Ceri Fuller, the husband, Ruth his wife, and their children, Rebecca 8, Charlotte 7, and Sam 12. Ruth and Ceri met as children. They were born within 3 months of each other in the same maternity hospital, and they were in the same year at Whitecross School in the Forest of Dean. Right from the start, Ceri and Ruth's relationship was punctured with episodes of violence that left them reeling. It was a very toxic relationship. They were immersed in student life. The pair both drank heavily and, according to Ruth, were both violent towards each other. She said on one occasion, after Ceri had hit her a few times, she had tried to call the police and he tried to throttle her with the phone cord. After that episode, they separated for 18 months. They were reunited after this and set up home together in the Forest of Dean. Rebecca was born in 2003 and Charlotte in 2005. The girls were bridesmaids when their parents married in August 2009. In 2013, Ruth announced to her husband that she had developed feelings for a university lecturer and was leaving the marriage. Ruth recalled, after this argument, her husband stood in front of her on the last night the family spent together, crying, holding his wedding ring and asking if she should take it with him. She said, "I told Ceri I thought I needed to go away for a bit, but Ceri thought I may have been going through a midlife crisis." The family's last night together, Ceri cooked pasta for dinner and the 3 children slept downstairs together for a sleepover. Ruth said they sometimes did this to bond. "I cuddled up with them and Ceri. Eventually I went upstairs and Ceri must have followed at some point." She and Ceri discussed superstitions surrounding the century's last date, December the 12th, 2012, and whether or not the world was going to end. And then at some point that evening, Ceri took a tent from upstairs and she wondered if he was going to take the children camping. Ruth last saw her husband and children on Thursday, the 12th of July. She said, "Take the kids for a drive, I will tidy up here." This was the last time she saw Ceri or her children. In the next few hours that followed, Ruth had a nervous breakdown. She was seen by a neighbour outside their family home, pacing up and down. She recalled, "My head was completely broken. I didn't know where the children were and I didn't know what that meant." Later that day, Ruth was prevented by her father, Ron, from taking her own life. Ruth was taken to a GP and then she was sent to the hospital. But at that point, Ruth knew something terrible had happened. As far as the rest of the family were concerned, the children were with their dad. On Thursday the 12th of July, Lee's Land Rover was seen at around 3 p.m. in the Welshpool area. They were picked up on CCTV again just after 3:30 p.m. At some point after this, Ceri drove his children to a hill near Shrewsbury. He left the car near a footpath at the entrance and led the children into the woods. When the car was finally spotted, emergency crews, including an air ambulance from the RAF, raced to the scene, but it was soon all too clear there was nothing that they could do. He took the lives of his 3 children and then his own by jumping off the cliff. Toby Day took the life of his wife Samantha, who was 38 years old, and their 6-year-old daughter Genevieve at their family home in Milton in December 2011. He also attacked his 2 older children, who thankfully survived. This happened just a week after the police officer had faced a disciplinary hearing for misconduct and immediately lost his job. It's believed that Day used the national database to hunt for a love rival he suspected of having an affair with his wife. Armed police forced their way into the house and found Samantha and Genevieve in the back bedroom. They then found that he was laid on the floor next to them. He took his own life. His son Adam, was 13, was found with injuries in the living room. Their daughter Kimberly, who was 15, was attacked but managed to escape and run to a nearby school. At the inquest, it was heard that Day was informed that the newspapers had contacted the police asking about his dismissal. Claire and Phillip Austin married in 1993. Austin worked the night shift as a forklift operator and Claire worked for Northampton County Council as a part-time home help. On the 10th of July 2000, Austin and Claire were at their house they shared on a housing estate in Northampton. Austin attacked his wife and took her life. He then attacked and took the lives of the families Poodles, Dandy and Sooty. He then picked his children up from school and took them for fish and chips. Once they got home, he sedated both children and took their lives. The crime was undiscovered for a week and Austin spent that week on the run in Blackpool. On the 20th of July, Austin was arrested in the Lake District. He was sat in his car and had tried to harm himself. When asked what caused him to attack his wife and family, he told detectives, "She started hassling me and arguing and that. I just turned on her." When asked his reasons for taking the lives of his children, he stated, "It sort of came to me and that I had to kill her, so I went upstairs and killed my children." He initially pleaded not guilty to the murders on the grounds of diminished responsibility, but he then changed his plea and was given 3 life sentences. Austin will have to serve a minimum of 20 years. He applied for parole in 2021 and to move to an open prison. This was refused by the parole board. In 2023, the secretary again overruled the parole board's recommendation for a move to an open prison. His case is up for review this year. Millionaire Chris Foster took the life of his family and their pet dogs and horses before setting his $1.2 million mansion alight in August 2008. On the August bank holiday, the Foster family, Chris and his wife Jill, as well as their daughter Kirsty, attended a neighbour's shooting party and barbecue. They seemed a happy, loving family, enjoying the fruits of Chris's success in business. In the course of 21 years of marriage, Chris and Jill had moved from their first home in Wolverhampton to a country house in Shropshire, set in 16 acres of land with 4 much-loved dogs, 5 horses and Jill's doves. In the early hours of August 26th, a 999 call reported a fire at their home. The scale of this fire took everyone by surprise. It took 12 fire crews and several days to contain the flames, but when it was contained, they realised the crime. Chris had used his guns and took the life of his wife and his daughter, as well as the family pets, before starting the blaze that would lead to him having his own life taken. On the night of the fire, the first indication that something was very wrong had taken place was when the police turned up, but no one could enter the scene because a horse box had been left blocking the gate with its tyres shot out, and then because of the flames and the heat. Police stood watching evidence go up in smoke for 3 days. A fireman said it was like a clay oven, turning everything to ash. The last time Chris's mum had seen the family was at Kirsty's 15th birthday party. The mum told police that Chris was usual. He said, "Bye mum, see you soon." She also said that Chris had been talking to her and saying that he had a bit of trouble with the tax man, but this was a lie. He was in a lot of trouble. Foster had made his millions by creating an insulation that could protect the valves from being destroyed by fire. Big oil companies wanted proof it worked, but the test was expensive. Foster mortgaged his house for $5,000 worth of gas to fuel a demonstration. His mum said he was standing there with his fingers crossed while this fire was blazing. He knew that when the fire died down, if the material had protected the valves, that was it, and it worked. After that, he was making money hand over fist. He had so much that he didn't know what to do with it. Guns and shooting were central to his life. He joined the local gun club and would shoot up to 4 days a week. This would cost him £4,000 a day. He ordered custom-made shotguns, the cost of around $70,000. One year he spent $80,000 just on shooting. Foster kept guns all over the house. He was charismatic and handsome, but was described as Jekyll and Hyde, very charming and attractive, but also headstrong and impulsive. Before the crime, Foster's accountant had reported him to Inland Revenue for unpaid taxes. He was also in a dispute over a property in Cyprus worth £100,000. Foster actually went to court with the accountant. Foster told police he was being blackmailed. The accountant was acquitted, but Chris's paranoia got worse. Foster found a cheaper supplier in the US for his insulation materials, which breached his exclusive contract with a British supplier. They took him to court and won. Foster lost his business and liquidators froze everything. Instead of telling his family, he pretended to carry on working. He said at the barbecue that he had £11 million Russian deal that was in the pipeline. Since the crime, it came that he had debts of around £4 million, and this is believed to be the motive of taking his own lives, his daughter and his wife's. Now we look at the Prosper family. Juliana Prosper was born in Argentina and migrated to England, where she married Ray Prosper and they had 4 children. She lived in a flat with 3 of her children, which included Nicholas Prosper. Nicholas Prosper was diagnosed with autism spectrum disorder and was described as quiet. He had real strong interests in computers and gaming. He initially had a good friend group in his teens, but he became more and more isolated and fell into the internet even further. He was banned from a website for being pro-paedophile. Police found that Prosper had taken a strong interest in shootings that happen in American schools, especially the Sandy Hook Elementary crime. He specifically wanted to take the lives of around 30 people to achieve a very high toll before taking his own life. He had actually planned this crime for well over a year. He wanted it to take place at his old primary school on Friday the 13th. He wanted it to take place here because he had knowledge of the school's layout and the security system. In August 2024, he attempted to buy a firearm but failed, and on the 12th of September, the day before the crime took place, he managed to buy one from a local dealer for £650 using a fake firearms license. The dealer believed the license was legitimate and notified police about the purchase that same day. He wasn't arrested. He spent the rest of the day on the internet looking up very vile, disgusting content. He uploaded a video and shared it on social media during the early hours of the day, showing him declaring himself a follower of Clementine, which was a fictional character from the Walking Dead video game series. He actually saw her as his girlfriend. On the 13th of September, from midnight until 4:32 a.m, he continued his weird online searches on extreme topics. He then practiced and fired a shot in the flat, targeting his teddy bear. Sometime after this, his mother woke up, Juliana. She woke up earlier than expected. Prosper got armed with his firearm and took her life. Giselle, his sister, then woke up. He went into her bedroom and took her life. Then his brother Kyle was awoken. Prosper took his life. 999 was called by a neighbour at 5:29 a.m. Prosper was seen on CCTV leaving the flat at 5:33 a.m. and the police first arrived at the scene at around 10 to 6, making entry into the flat at 8 minutes past 6. Police discovered that he had taken the lives of his mother, sister and brother. Prosper then began walking in the direction of St. Joseph's Primary School. He had his firearm with him and 33 cartridges in a large bag, but high police activity and the realisation that it was too early for the school to be open prompted him to hide in a nearby wooded area for over 2 hours. At 7:55 he left this wooded area and started walking down the road. A police car passed, which he flagged down with a raised hand. Prosper believed that all the schools in the area would be locked down, so his plan was foiled and decided to surrender as a result, but this wasn't the truth. The arresting officers, who had been on the way back to the station from the scene of the crime, noticed Prosper and arrested him after seeing marks on his face. During his arrest he kept saying, "It's not murder." He was charged with 3 counts of murder, purchasing or acquiring a shotgun without a certificate, possession of a shotgun, and possession of a bladed article in a public place. Indecent images were also found on his phone, but due to the other charges, he was not charged in relation to them. On the 24th of February 2025, Nicholas Prosper pleaded guilty to 3 counts of murder at Luton Crown Court, along with all the other charges. Through his writings and conversation in prison, Prosper stated that he regretted not being able to kill more people. On the 19th of March, he was sentenced to life imprisonment with a minimum term of 49 years to be served. Hugh Mcfall was a self-employed flower salesman. He was 48 years old when he was found in his industrial lockup after taking his own life. On the 5th of February 2010, he was found 4 hours after his wife and daughter were discovered at their family home. His wife Susan was 56 and his daughter Francesca was 18 years old. A handwritten note was found near his wife's body, which read, "My world, Frankie and Susan, just ended. I love them so much. Nobody can understand. Part of me wants to stay alive just so I can keep thinking about them. The pain is too much." Talking about his wife's children from her first marriage, he said, "What I have done to Dan and Nick is beyond belief. It is all over now. I hope I rot in hell." At the inquest, it heard that he was having problems financially. He faced accusations around invoices. He had been called for a meeting with the owners of Stan's Superstore in St Martin's the day before he took his own life and took the life of his wife and daughter. The supermarket, which made up around 95% of his business, had said it was suspending its trade with him. The self-employed flower salesman was facing accusations that his invoice was wrong. They had suspended his contract. He feared a police investigation into his accounts. Supermarket officials summoned him to their premises to confront him over their suspicions he may have been overpaid by more than £500,000 over 7 years. The police also looked at 2 computers he owned. It revealed internet searches for how to commit euthanasia, HIV testing and sexual health clinics. The same user had also searched for ladies of the nights, massage parlours, as well as other images. Mr. Roberts, the coroner, said that he had fears about his sexual health may have been going through his mind when he decided to commit the crime, as well as his business worries. They tested both him and his wife, and they both tested negative for HIV. Andrew Case, who's 33 years old, was married to his wife Vicky, who was 31. They had 2 children, Phoebe, who was 2, and Neri, who was 1 year old. They were all found with their lives taken in July 2010 in Hampshire by Vicky's mother, Linda Haskell. At around 11 a.m. on Monday, The 26th of July 2010, Victoria Case's mother visited the family home. She had done so as she had been unable to make contact by telephone since last seeing them on the Saturday. She entered the house and found her daughter and her 2 granddaughters in the living room. She ran out into the street to raise the alarm. Neighbours checked the home and found that Andrew Case had also taken his own life. The family had passed away just days after they returned from a week-long holiday in Weymouth. Case was last seen picking up an Indian takeaway at 6 p.m. on Saturday evening before returning to their home. It's believed he was in bad financial difficulties and had filed an alternative to bankruptcy known as an individual voluntary arrangement, an IVA. He filed this in 2006. The police also found on a forum that he said he was worried about money owed on Vicky's credit card. It's believed because of this financial difficulty he took the lives of his children, his wife and himself. Aram Aziz took the life of Joy Small, his girlfriend, who was 24, their son Ubar, who was 3, and their daughter Chinara, who was 2, at their flat in Leicester in February 2011. Officials from the Department of the UK Border Agency had been searching for him, who was an Iraqi Kurd, between May 2005 and November 2006 to expel him from the country after he had been denied asylum. They didn't know another branch of agency had moved him to Leicester and was paying for him to stay in asylum seekers accommodation. The 32-year-old was branded as abusive by friends of his partner, who said he had once poured lighter fluid all over her. Aziz left Iraq in February 2005 and first applied to the UK for asylum in April that year under the name of Saman Ali Rahim. That was refused a month later because it was found he had already made an application in Slovenia. He then vanished before re-emerging to make a second UK application, this time in the name Aram Aziz. In January 2006, he was moved to Leicester while that application was considered. In December 2008, the UK Border Agency denied asylum, but because he had met Miss Small in early 2006 and had 2 children, he was granted a 3-year stay in the UK as a partner of a British national. He was given a conditional discharge for assaulting her in September 2007. Police actually asked if he could be deported, but the Border Agency turned down the request because of his pending asylum decision. He left a note next to his own body that asked for the bodies to be buried in an Islamic way. The note said, "I took my own life, please keep us together." It was found there was a history of domestic violence in the couple's relationship. He had previously threatened to take her life if he found her with another man. He had also been convicted of battering and was given a harassment order by police, but was never arrested or deported. Richard Smith attacked his wife Claire and took her life, and then took the life of their 9-year-old son Ben and 1-year-old son Aaron at their home in Leeds in December 2011. He then placed them all on a bed and set fire before lying down with them. In the inquest it said, it would appear Richard has undergone some aberration, some problem affecting his mental health, which caused him to make the action he has. It was a concerted act of destruction of his family and his own self-destruction. He was described as obsessive and had said he was been receiving treatment for depression for around 2 years. Michael Atherton was a taxi driver and had a firearm licence which allowed him to legally own firearms. He had 6 in total, 3 of which that were shotguns. He had these firearms confiscated in 2008 by police, but they were later returned. He was arrested for a fray at a local club, and months later armed police were called to his home after he threatened to blow his head off to his family. In Hordern on New Year's Day in 2012, he took the life of his partner Susan McGoldrick, her sister Alison Turnbull and her daughter Tanya, and then took his own life. This all happened at his home, where 3 others escaped from an upstairs window, one of whom had suffered minor injuries from the spray of the firearm. He had a real issue with his partner's sister and had warned there would be trouble if he saw Alison Turnbull at his home that evening, but his victims arrived at the house in Hordern before he left. He disliked Alison and blamed her for his arrest in 2008 following a family row. On the night of the crime, the sisters and other family members had been out to a local robbery club without him. He grew angry when his son Mick told him they were together. The taxi driver sent a text message to his girlfriend saying, "Our Mick says you are with your Ali. Going to stop at the lodge, ain't spending a night in the cells, see you tomorrow." But the woman arrived home before he had left, and his partner accused him of assaulting her earlier that night. At the inquest, it said an argument started when he went out of the back door. Those present believed he was leaving for the night. The inquest earlier heard how more than 100 gun licenses were revoked in the wake of the crime. Durham police had admitted it knew of his history of violence, and the hearing has been told how the force missed opportunities to remove the weapons he legally owned. Rab Thomson took the life of his daughter, Michelle, and his son Ryan in Scotland in 2008. He portrayed this image to everyone else that he was this great family man, but he wasn't. His wife June decided to leave him after 27 years of beatings and and he took the lives of their children as revenge. Even when he was arrested, he didn't show any remorse or care. He was sentenced to just 17 years for the murders. And this concludes our video today. As always, thanks so much for watching, and until next time.